it's nice to see you again. On Thursday will be the International Labor Day, so I'm a bit excited. And what about you? So I hope you tell me down in the comments. So for today's books, I'm telling you about Abraham Lincoln, famous president of the United States. So let's get started with this book. Abraham Lincoln was born on February 12th in 1890 in a crude log cabin in Kentucky. So a cabin is a very small place, like such as a house, but smaller than a house. His father, Thomas Lincoln, was hardworking and quiet and famous for his honesty. He'd had little schooling, just enough to sign his name. Abraham's mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln, was intelligent and curious. She could read a little, but couldn't write at all. The Lincolns were poor. They moved from one small farm to another, trying to scratch out a living. When Abraham was 7, the family moved from Kentucky to Indiana. Eventually, the Lincolns ended up on a tiny farm in Illinois. Even as small children, Abraham and his older sister Sarah worked hard. Abraham was tall and strong for his age. By the time he was 8, he could pick up an axe and split wood as well as any man. When Abraham was 9, his mother died. It was a terrible loss for him and his sister Sarah. Thomas Lincoln couldn't raise the children by himself. Their home was miles from the most other people, so he went back to Kentucky and returned with a new wife. So it's a bit excited here because the new wife, also named Sarah, her name is Sarah Bush Johnstone, was a widow with 3 children. She brought her furniture with her, real beds, a table, and chairs that seemed like amazing luxuries to Lincoln children. Much as he missed his own mother, Abraham quickly came to love Sarah. She encouraged all his interests. He called her Mama and was much closer to her than his own father. Because of Sarah, Abraham remembered his childhood as a happy time. So Sarah was like his mom. She also read books to Abraham Lincoln after dinner or something before they sleep. I really like that. How the family is. In Kentucky, Abraham had gone to an ABC school where he had learned the alphabet, but not how to read or write. In Indiana, he sometimes went to a blab school, a place where all students said their lesson out loud together. The schoolmaster listened and tried to pick out their mistakes through the noise. Abraham finished with school for good at the age of 15. Now he could teach himself anything he wanted. He read every book he could find. He once walked 20 miles to borrow one. It took him long to finish. Many people thought he seemed slow and plodding, but his stepmother understood why he took so long to learn. He wanted to be sure he really understood everything in the book. Sometimes he'd learn part of the book by heart. Because paper was expensive and hard to get, he wrote the passage into a piece of wood. When the wood got so black he couldn't see what he was writing, he would shave it off. Then he would start over again. People like Abraham. Wait a minute, let's skip that part. Abraham Lincoln knew he didn't want to be a farmer like his father, but he didn't know what he did want to do. So when he was 21, he decided to leave home and find out. He was hired to help sail flatboats loaded with supplies down Sangamon River. One time, The boat got stuck in a dam in front of the town of New Salem in central Illinois. It began filling with water. Lincoln and the other on board couldn't free it. Suddenly, Lincoln had a brilliant idea. He bored a hole in front of the boat and shifted all the supplies to that end. The boat tipped towards the hole, and all the water ran out until the boat was high enough to go over the dam. Denton offered. The boat's owner was so impressed that he offered to put Lincoln in business. He decided to build a store in New Salem. Lincoln would manage it. New Salem was a small village, but to Lincoln it seemed large and bustling. The store was a place where people gathered. Lincoln quickly became popular. People trusted him. He would never take advantage of anyone, even for a few cents. That means if that supplies 5 cents, he would just take 5 cents. He don't say that. Oh, it's just maybe some holiday the price is more price, and he take advantage of that. So yeah, he's very honest. I haven't shown you any picture, right? So here's Lincoln. In 1832, Lincoln's friend convinced him to run for Illinois state legislature. He didn't win, but he came close. In the meantime, Offutt's store failed, and Lincoln lost his job. Just then, a war broke out between Illinois settlers and Native Americans. Lincoln joined the militia. He never actually fought any battles, but he boasts about all the blood he'd shed because of the mosquitoes. In 1837, Lincoln moved to Springfield, the new state capital. Springfield was a frontier town with log cabins. Pigs ran loose on dirt roads, but it was the biggest place Lincoln had ever lived in. It even had a bookstore. He worked at his friend's law firm, where he kept track of the paperwork. He wasn't very good at this. He had a habit of carrying important papers around inside the tall stovepipe that had. Sometimes he lost them. So like most Western lawyers, Lincoln had to travel to town all around the state. Twice a year, a judge visited all the towns that were too small to have their own courts. Lincoln joined the group of lawyers who followed the judge's route. So here's Lincoln carrying all the papers on his hat too. It's very funny. Lincoln was a strong supporter of the Whig Party. They did not tell the Whig Party, but maybe it's kind of party or the name of maybe the dance, the ballroom or something. Soon he became one of the most important party members in Illinois. Wherever he went, he worked hard campaigning for Whig candidates. He knew thousands of voters by name. Lincoln was comfortable with most people, but he was shy and awkward around young women. A couple of years after he moved to Springfield, he met Mary Todd at a party. I thought he stepped all over her feet when they danced together. Mary liked Lincoln. She was a Southern belle who, at 21, was very eager to get married. Pretty and lovely, she put Lincoln at ease by doing most of talking herself. Mary was more interested in politics than most women of that time. She often said she wanted to marry a man who would be president. They were married on November 4th, 1842. So here's the picture of Mary and Abraham dancing in the ballroom. It's not very romantic, but in my opinion, I don't think there's a perfect match. I don't mean to say something bad about them, but yeah, you look, Mary is too fat and Abraham is too tall and skinny. Can't believe they can't marry, but maybe love. Yeah. On Mary's wedding ring, Lincoln engraved "Love is eternal." At first, the couple lived in a hotel, but soon they bought a house. It was tiny and not very fancy. Still, it was the first house Lincoln had ever owned. 9 months after the marriage, their first child, Robert, was born. 2 years later, they have a second son, Edward, who died at age 3. Eventually, they had a third son, Willie, and fourth, Thomas. When Thomas was born, his head was so large that Lincoln thought he looked like a tadpole. So the boy was nicknamed Tad. I don't think a father who thinks their son looked like an animal. That's a bit rude to me. That's weird though. So here's the family. This is Abe. So Abraham was nicknamed Abe when he was little, but I don't know why in this book they don't tell about that. But yeah, this Abe and his son Robert. I think it's Willie, and that's Robert. Tad and Mary. In 1841, after 6 years in the state legislature, Lincoln decided it was time to do something bigger and more important. He wanted to be the Whig candidate for the United States House of Representatives, but the party chose another candidate. Even so, he worked hard to get his rival elected. He thought this might put him in line to be elected the next time. His plan worked. In 1846, Abraham Lincoln was elected as a representative from Illinois. He moved to boarding house in Washington, D.C. Now Lincoln would be dealing with issues that affected the whole country, not just his own state. Mary and the children came with him, but the boys behaved so badly that soon he had to send them away. Lincoln didn't have time to miss them. He was working hard. He almost never missed a session of Congress. He made speeches, but he didn't do anything very important, and no one knew what took him. At the end of 2-year term, Lincoln returned home feeling that he had failed to make his mark on the country. This is so I have to tell about this. Douglas had become famous while Lincoln was relatively unknown. Now Lincoln was eager to challenge him, so Douglas was, I don't know, I didn't highlight that part, so I don't know, but the man responsible for Kansas Nebraska Act was Senator Stephen Douglas from Illinois, so he was senator. Now I know. Douglas, however, refused to set up a debate, so Lincoln followed him to open-air speech in Springfield. Douglas defended the Kansas Nebraska Act. He said that in America, people have the right to decide how they wanted to be governed. This meant that the people of every state should be able to decide freely whether or not to allow slavery. So, the Abraham family really hates slavery, and he does not want slavery at all. The black, that's what I mean. When Douglas had finished, Lincoln yelled to the crowd that tomorrow he would explain why Douglas was wrong. The next day, a huge audience gathered. Lincoln spoke for 3 hours. Douglas' arguments, he said, only makes sense if you didn't think of blacks as people. Lincoln thought blacks should have the same right to decide about their lives as white people. He said that America had been founded on the belief that no man is good enough to govern another man without the other consents, no matter what color the person was. Just like Barack Obama now. Once again, Lincoln asked Douglas to debate him. This time, Douglas had to accept. In 1858, 7 debates were held in the different towns all over Illinois. The main issue was slavery. People poured into neighboring states to listen. The whole country followed Lincoln-Douglas debates in the newspaper. Reporters wrote down every word each man said. Lincoln and Douglas had made comical opponents. Douglas was short, round, and dignified. His nickname was the Little Giant because he dressed elegantly and had rich, deep voice. Lincoln was tall, and thin, and awkward. He still dressed like a farmer and had a high, thin voice. His chin was like a bit sharp. People disagree who had won the debates, and Lincoln lost the Senate election again. But he had become famous. He had invited to a lecture on slavery in New York City. The Republican Party chose Lincoln as their candidate for president. They call him the Rail Candidate because he had split rails as a boy. He didn't really expect to win because at 2 a.m. the result was certain. Because the Democratic Party was divided between two candidates, Lincoln had won more votes than any other candidates. Mary was thrilled. She had always wanted to be the wife of a president, but Lincoln could not sleep. He then felt as I never had before a responsibility that was upon me, he once said. He was unlikely president. He had only for 1 year of school. He had almost no experience in national government. He was not a war hero. He didn't even know exactly what the president did, and now suddenly he was the 16th president of the United States. During the campaign, an 11-year-old girl named Grace Beddoe had written to him. She thought he'd look more like a president if he had a beard. So he grew one, like this. And like the front cover like that. Lincoln was trouble before he even took office. The slave states hate him. Almost no one in the South had voted for him. As soon as the news came to his election, some states seceded from the Union. They said they were no longer part of the United States. Lincoln was not their president. Soon, 4 more states joined them. They called their new country the Confederate States of America. They elected Jefferson Davis as their president. So here's Jefferson Davis. Look much less like Abraham Lincoln, though. 4 states where slavery was legal, Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri, had not left the Union. Lincoln didn't want to anger these states and lose them too. But despite Lincoln's wish, the country was soon torn in two. A month later, on April 12, 1861, Southern soldiers fired on Union soldiers at Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War had begun. Woo! Interesting. Let's see what's happened next. More than 80 years earlier, the American colonies, North and South, had united to break away from England and had become a new country. Now Americans would be fighting Americans. Families were divided. Even Lincoln's own family. His wife Mary had relatives in South who owned slaves. They fought on the other side. So this Union soldier blue and Confederate soldier gray. So this is Abraham Fear, and that was the Confederate soldier. So this is how different they look. I think the Union soldier looks simple. Lincoln had wait a minute. No, I'm not selling that part. Is so long. Congress gave Mary's while Lincoln was so busy with that, Congress gave Mary some money to fix up. She made it elegant. to fix the White House. She made it elegant and beautiful. However, she spent far too much money. Lincoln rarely lost his temper with his wife. Now he did. He needed money from the Congress to pay for uniforms and blankets for the soldier. Yet, he had to go and ask for more money for silly frills as well. It had stopped, he told his wife. So Mary spent too much money. So look at the picture. She's moving a lot of stuff. Lincoln's oldest son was always at college, but 10 years old Willie and 8 years old Ted had a wonderful time in Washington. They made friends with Soldier, who was quartered at the White House. They set up toy cannons on the roof and fired the Confederate army only for a few miles away. It was unusual for the children to be living in the White House. The president before Lincoln had only grown-ups children. The whole country was interested in Lincoln boys. People sent them presents, especially pets. They had a pony and 2 goats and ran around and destroyed the White House garden. Sometimes the goats got inside the house. Ted once made the sled out of the chair and had goat pull him right through the middle of the elegant party. Lincoln never scolded the boys or tried to make them behave. Neither did Mary. They were allowed to burst into president's office. It didn't matter who was there. Lincoln sometimes talked to his generals, with one of the boys climbing up his chair and onto his shoulders. Sometimes they napped on the floor, overhearing state secrets. The boys had a soldier doll named Jack. One day they decided Jack had gone to sleep on guard duty had to be punished. They sent him to death. Then they ran to their father, interrupting a meeting, and asked him to pardon Jack. Lincoln listened gravely to their case. Then he wrote out the official pardon on the White House stationery. That's so funny. Later, Ted also got Lincoln to free turkey that was being fattened for Christmas dinner. Ted wanted to keep it as a pet. He named the turkey Jack, too. Lincoln didn't mind these interruptions. In fact, he needed them. In the middle of a terrible war and with his worries, Ted and Willie could make him smile. So here's how the kids, they were so naughty. They slipped there. In 1862, 11 years old Willie Lincoln died of typhoid fever. His death was terribly hard on both parents. Of all their sons, Willie had been the most like his father. Mary fell apart after Willie died. She couldn't believe he has really gone. She began to hold seances, hoping for spirits of both her dead sons, little Eddie and Willie, would visit her. A lot of people in Washington had never liked Mary. They thought she'd show off. People whispered mean rumors. Some even thought she was a Confederate spy. After all, she had brothers and sisters who sided with the South. The rumors were completely unfair. Mary may have been vain and irritating, but she was always loyal to her husband and to the Union. So that means she's just regular. I think she's half not nice and half good and half not good. Yeah, something like that. I'm just gonna, and then, so Lincoln started the war, and I cannot tell these parts because it was so hard for me. So I'm just gonna go through it, okay? Because, yeah, and let me tell you the result. That means the North win. So they just have fighting, and we cannot tell how it happened, okay? On April 14, 1865, Lincoln went to comedy at Forest Theater with his wife and some friends. He and Mary wanted to relax and enjoy themselves. That afternoon, he had said to her, "We must both be more cheerful in the future." At the theater, Lincoln sat at a rocking chair, and Mary hung on his arm and flirted with her husband. John Wilkes Booth learned Lincoln was going to be that theater. Booth had acted there and knew his way around the buildings, so he had no trouble getting in and sneaking upstairs to the president's private box. He crept up behind. Lincoln was fired his gun. The sound of Booth's gunshot was drowned by laughter from the audience. Booth escaped by leaping dramatically to the stage. Lincoln did not die immediately. He was carried from the theater to a house across the street. The bed was so small that the tall president did not fit on it. He had to be propped up on a pillow. Surrounded by his family, doctors, and advisors, he lay in a coma for 9 hours. At 7:22, the next morning, Abraham Lincoln died. He was 56 years old. So here's him lying on the bed. Everyone looked very worried, of course sad, especially his family. John Wilkes Booth was never brought to trial. A few days after shooting, his hiding place was discovered. He was shot to death trying to escape. Booth thought what he'd done was noble and heroic. However, all the nation people mourned the dead president. Clocks were stopped to mark the moment of his death. Millions came to Washington, D.C. to pay their respect. Then Lincoln's body was put on a special train back to Springfield. That was where he could be buried. His son Willie's coffin was dug up and traveled. Mary Lincoln had never recovered from the shock of her husband's death, too. And so Abraham Lincoln was so famous that now you know he was being on a 5 bill of the United States and have a memorial. And there's Lincoln Memorial, and there's Mount Rushmore. And his wife, I haven't told enough, yes, I'm sorry, that his wife very shocked, and she haven't go to the funeral too. And I don't know how Mary is, what kind of person she is. So that's the end. I'm kind of quick today because, I wanted this to be quick and short, not so long, like every day, like 32 or 35 minutes. Yeah, thank you for watching my video. I hope you gave it a like, share, comments down if you're watching on Facebook, and if you're watching on YouTube, just click the button subscribe to see more video. And wish you have a nice long weekends or holidays with your family. Bye. Thank you for watching.